Welcome to Ogre's Kitchen. I'm Chef Ogre. Let's check our prep list and see what we have cooking today. In today's recipe, we're going to make a simple brine consisting of water, sugar, and salt. And that's it. That's it. That's all you need to make a simple brine. But to this brine, we're going to add some extra flavorings using some seasonal ingredients that are going to really up the flavor profile. And we're going to be using this brine for chicken that we're then going to use for a seasonal chicken salad recipe that I really hope you're going to enjoy. So here we have it. We have all of our ingredients set and ready for us to make this simple brine. We even have our trusty container here that we're going to be making our brine in that will then hold our chicken as well. So once again, as I've mentioned before, you want to make sure you have a large enough container to use so that way you can fit all your chicken in here without worries of it overflowing on you. So to make the simple brine, clear off a few of our ingredients here. We're just going to add some warm water. This is going to just help us dissolve our sugar and our salt. This is 4 cups of water. And to that, we're going to add a 1/4 cup of brown sugar and a 1/4 cup of salt. Now, that right there just makes our basic brine. And you could really use this brine to do anything. You can use it for pork, chicken, beef, whatever your heart's desire. And really just let it sit in here overnight, and what happens is the salt and the sugar in here kind of absorb into whatever the product is, and it infuses flavor. So this on its own is very basic, but in order to punch this up a few notches, we're going to add some seasonal flavors. So we'll go ahead and prep those ingredients out next. So now that we've prepped up all of our ingredients and we have everything set here, we have our basic brine here. We're just going to give this a little bit of a mix. Now that this is mixed up and some of that sugar and salt is dissolved in there a little bit, we're going to go ahead and add the rest of our ingredients. And then we'll go ahead and continue to mix a little bit more. So what I have here is a little bit of shallots and garlic that I've crushed to help release a little bit of the flavor, and the shallots are just rough chopped, just so again you have a lot more surface area adding flavor to this brine. Next we have a mixture of herbs, of rosemary, sage, and thyme. Which again, we're starting to get into the holiday season, so these poultry herb blends, you'll see them a lot in the stores now, and they're a fantastic addition to any marinade or brine that you're making, especially for poultry, turkey, chicken, duck even. And then lastly, we're going to add apple cider vinegar. Now you could even add apple cider to this brine and it'd be absolutely delicious, but I like the little bit more punchy flavor of the acidity that you get from the vinegar. So we're just going to go ahead and add that in there, and then we'll give this one last mix to ensure that all the ingredients are well incorporated, and then we'll go ahead and add our chicken. So now everything is mixed thoroughly. You really just want to make sure that the salt and the sugar are dissolved completely in here. All the other ingredients will kind of infuse themselves as time passes. So you can even make this brine ahead of time and just keep it on hand in the fridge, and it'll hold for a good long time. There's not much that's going to go bad in here, especially with the level of salt. You have sugar and you also have the acidity from the vinegar at this point as well. So this will easily last a week. Now, to this, I'm going to go ahead and add my chicken. So this is just chicken breast, and I like the brine chicken breast because it helps it also not only give it some flavor, but also holds on to a little bit more moisture, making the cooking process a little more forgiving for the chicken. So I got a set of tongs here. I'm going to go ahead and just add these chicken breasts on into my brine. Once again, like I said, the container definitely large enough to be able to fit all of my product with the brine in there safely. A little bit of a gap on top so that way we don't have to worry about this spilling over on us. And there you have it. We'll set this in the fridge overnight. You can do this again in a couple hours, but really I feel you get better results if you let this go ahead and go overnight. So we'll check back tomorrow and we'll get going with our chicken salad recipe. Now we're back for the next day. Our chicken is brined overnight and it's ready to come out of the brine. So what I have here set up is a little station so that way I could pat my chicken dry after it comes out of the brine, which is exactly what I'm going to do now. So with some thyme, I'm just going to go ahead and lift these out of the brine. you'll be able to see the difference in the coloration of the chicken. It's going to be a lot more of a pale color. And that's due to the fact that in this brine, it actually starts to almost cook the chicken a little bit. So that's why you don't want to over brine any of your product. 24 hours is plenty of time to properly brine something. Now, in different cases, you can use acid actually as a cooking method, which is what they do with ceviche, where they actually use mostly citrus to cook the flesh of fish, usually in ceviche. Now, flesh of a fish is a lot more delicate than something like chicken, pork, or beef, which is why it works out so well for that particular type of protein. So the same thing sort of starts to happen with any other protein that you're keeping in a brine, and even your marinade. So it's important that you don't leave things in a brine or a marinade for too long. Now, something heartier like pork or beef can maybe last a little bit longer than 24 hours, but I really don't recommend, unless you have a really specific reason to keep something in a brine for that long. Usually wouldn't want to do that. So now what I'm just going to do is pat the chicken dry on top as well, so that way we get as much of that brine off there as possible. So now technically what will happen here is, because of the salt and because of the sugar that was in this brine, not only did it pick up some of the flavorings from the seasonings, but it absorbed a lot of that salt and that sugar. So now, technically, the water content of this chicken, it's kind of like when you see a solution added to chicken that you get from the grocery store. That's to help retain some of the moisture within the meat. So something like a chicken breast is a lot drier than something like the chicken thigh. The dark meat's always a little bit more moist, and it has the benefit of some of the fat that's added into those cuts of meat versus the chicken breast itself. Now you see I left some of the fat around the outside. I'm perfectly fine and okay with that. That's going to cook up and crisp up really nicely in the oven. So I'll transfer these to another tray, and then into the oven they'll go. And in the meantime, while that's cooking, I'm going to go ahead and prep up all of the other ingredients. So now I have all my ingredients together to make the dressing basically for my chicken salad. So as my chicken's cooking, I'm going to go ahead and get this all together, so that way when my chicken's done in the oven, I can just mix everything together and it'll be ready to go. So here I have 1 cup of dried cranberries, 1 cup of mayonnaise. I have 2 ounces of relish, 2 ounces of Dijon mustard, 2 stalks of celery, and then about 2 teaspoons of salt. So what we'll do here is we'll cut up our celery. So we're just going to simply dice this up and have this ready to go into this mixing bowl here with our spatula. So now that our celery is diced and ready to go, now we can start adding some of our other ingredients. So we have our 1 cup of dried cranberries. We have 1 cup of mayonnaise. You can use whatever mayonnaise you like. I live in the South here, so Duke's mayonnaise is usually the mayonnaise of choice for most recipes. Now, this is about 2 teaspoons of a salt and pepper mix. Use a 3-to-1 ratio for a simple salt-pepper mix. You can simply add salt and pepper to your own liking, adjust it to your taste. I've done this recipe enough times where I'm pretty comfortable with that amount of seasoning, and then I can adjust from there afterwards. This is our relish. That's 2 ounces or a 1/4 cup of relish. And then lastly, we have 2 ounces or a 1/4 cup of Dijon mustard. Again, this is one of those things where you can adjust the recipe however you'd like. If you don't like Dijon, you could use some other type of mustard. I find that This amount of Dijon mustard in this recipe adds a little bit of flavor where it's not overwhelming. You can get just hints of it. And I've had people say that they don't like mustard, but in this recipe, they actually don't mind it because it's such a subtle flavor profile when it's mixed in with everything else. So really, the final flavor of this dish, you have some sweet notes from the cranberries, along with the savory notes, a little bit of sweetness from the relish, Dijon, counteracting that with a little bit of vinegar, and then the mayonnaise kind of mellows everything out. So once our chicken is ready, it's rested and cooled, we'll go ahead and dice that up and we'll add it to this bowl, which we can keep in the refrigerator and have it be all nice and cold, ready to go. So now my chicken's ready to come on out of the oven. What I'm going to do is allow this chicken to rest and to cool a little bit. And then we can go ahead and cut it and have it be ready for our chicken salad. And so the dressings are already made, so you don't have to do much there, and it's in the fridge cooling down. So whenever this is cool, I can just mix everything up and it'll be immediately ready for use. Now to note, this chicken cooked in the oven at 350 degrees for roughly about 25 to 30 minutes. Really, you're just going by temperature. So as I've mentioned before, cooking chicken, especially chicken of this size where it's going to hold heat for a good amount of time and carry over, cook a little bit, I like to pull it around 155 degrees, and it'll carry over that extra 10 degrees to reach that 165, which is really the final cooking temperature that you want for your chicken. So now that my chicken's had ample time to cool down, and it's at about room temperature, I've pulled my mix from the fridge. This consists of our dressing, everything's set there. So I'll go ahead and just cut up our chicken. Now, like I said, these are pretty large pieces of chicken. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut them this way first. That way I can get a more even dice and you don't have big, giant, thick cuts of chicken. And I might even get maybe I get two lengthwise cuts out of these. And I'm wearing gloves because I find it easiest to just use my hands to mix all this up. And then I can transfer this bowl for serving. I do have a little extra salt here. We will taste this just to make sure that the seasoning's correct. And actually, let me go ahead and taste a little bit of this chicken just on its own. I just want to see where we're at on the chicken. And really, that's a fantastic flavor I'm getting from the chicken. It's almost like the chicken is completely seasoned on its own. The brine has really entered into the chicken. I get a little sweetness from the sugar, the salt. We get some of those herbs from the sage, the thyme, the rosemary. It's really a fantastic just base flavor that we're getting. And now we're just gonna mix this with our hands until it's thoroughly mixed. Kind of rotating the bowl as we go so that we make sure that all the ingredients are incorporated together. And then once we see that we're completely mixed, we can go ahead and transfer this to our bowl, but we're going to taste it first to make sure that we don't have to adjust any of our seasonings. So I'll go ahead and grab a new tasting utensil and we'll give this a try. And I feel like the flavors are spot on in this chicken salad here. It's ready to transfer to our holding bowl. Now you're getting some of that sweetness from the cranberries. There's a little punch of vinegar flavor from the Dijon mustard. And because I refrigerated my dressing ingredients. This can be ready to use immediately, or you go ahead and set it in the fridge, and it'll just get even better with flavor overnight. All those flavors will have time to marry and really bring out all the flavors and kind of combine everything. But there you have it. There's our chicken salad. Let's go ahead and plate some up. So now our chicken salad's complete. We're ready to go ahead and plate up. What I'm going to do here are little sliders. I'm using a little Martin's potato roll. And these are absolutely delicious and will actually complement the flavor of this chicken salad. So let's go ahead and plate these up. So I've got some bib lettuce here. I'm going to use this as the liner. So we'll put a little leaf in the middle, and then we'll surround that with some of our potato sliders here. We'll just put a leaf down on each of the bottoms here. And then I got a scoop, which is roughly about the size of the slider. So we'll just go ahead, and that's how we're going to end up serving this chicken salad. Get a nice scoop of chicken salad, nice healthy scoop. We'll set that right down there on top of your bib lettuce. Now, the longer this sits, the colder it gets, the more it'll hold really nicely for you. So you don't have to worry about it spilling over if it's really nice and cold. We're just going to go ahead and set this up right like this. Now you could either put the lid right on top, or I like to just set these off on the side. Just a little bit for a nice little effect that you get with your sliders. And there you have it. I hope you get a chance to try this recipe. And if you do, let me know down in the comments what you think. Let's go ahead and give one a try. Now, they might be a little messy, so I'm going to go ahead and press down a little bit here. That is a fantastic chicken salad slider. I'm getting all the flavors. The garlic, the shallots that were in that brine, they come through very subtly. You get that Dijon mustard. It's just fantastic flavors. Little hits of sweetness from those dried cranberries in there. You also are getting some of the notes from the herbs that are in there, the sage, the thyme, and rosemary. So it really does invoke some fall flavors. So I really hope you get a chance to try this recipe, and let me know in the comments what you think. Now I want to talk about this chicken salad recipe a little bit and some of the variations that you can make with it. Now originally this recipe, when I was using it in a restaurant, it was a grilled chicken salad. And it was a perfect recipe for that summertime kind of flavor where you're getting some of that grilled char added into the extra flavors of the chicken salad. But you could easily change up what we've done here to do all sorts of different variations. If you want to switch out the dried cranberries for raisins, maybe you want to use apricots, or even dried mango could be a great option if you want to add some of those summertime flavors. Now you can switch up the herbs as well in your brine. It doesn't have to be apple cider. It could be, any other type of champagne vinegar or maybe a white balsamic. Now, when we're talking about some of the other variations that you can make with this recipe, you don't just have to use a brine. You could also use a marinade, and you could switch that up however you'd like the flavor profile to be. Each element of flavor that you add to this dish will alter it slightly and make it unique to your own. Now, I also want to discuss a little bit about the difference between a brine and a marinade. Now, usually if you're using a brine, it has a high level of salt and a little bit of sugar in there as well, and that's usually to help impart moisture to the product that you're brining. Now, that doesn't mean you can't also add other flavors like I showed you in this particular case, but a marinade is much better for imparting large amounts of flavor because it's a lot more concentrated flavors that you can place into a marinade. So we discussed a marinade has 3 different parts. It has an acid, a fat, and then seasonings. while a brine usually consists of some type of liquid, usually water, salt, and sugar. That's what a basic brine would consist of. And then anywhere you go from there is to your own liking. Now you could use this chicken salad recipe in a lot of different ways. You could obviously put it on a slider like we did today, but it also makes a great salad topping in general. And you could even eat this chicken salad on its own. It's that good. So feel free to try this recipe out. Let me know if you do and what you think of it. And also let me know if you try any different variations for this recipe. Thank you for watching. That's it from Ogre's Kitchen. Time to sweep, mop, and go home. If you enjoyed today's video, please like and feel free to share. Subscribe for more content and hit that notification bell for when new videos are uploaded. For all those who are subscribed, thank you for your support. Hope to see you next time, and until then, keep those cauldrons bubbling and feast well.